All right, Allan, before we get started, in the length of a tweet or a tweet thread, what do we talk about today?
Yeah, so let's talk about what is a technical marketer and why I love it so much. Let's geek out about Braze a little bit, and let's talk about the early days of building my Braze consulting business.
I'm Ibby Syed.
I'm Sean Collins.
And this is Numbers and Narratives.
All right, Allan, for my purposes, because you and Sean know each other, give me the intro, give me your background, give me your life story. I want to know everything.
Awesome. Well, my typical YouTube intro goes, "What's up, everyone? My name is Allan, founder and consultant at 4Now Marketing, and welcome back to Braze for Technical Marketers." So I've said that multiple times, so that's kind of like ingrained in my voice, but that is me, Allan, founder and consultant at 4Now Marketing. We are a team of Braze experts. I kind of going backwards in most recent order, I used to be a Braze customer success manager. So I worked at Braze, learned the platform inside out. Before that, I was at a tech startup. So a team of 7 people, very small, learned all sorts of things and, all sorts of crazy solutions to problems I didn't know I could solve. And before that, I was a high school math and computer science teacher. So just lots of different industries and changes over the last 6-7 years of my career, I guess. Yeah.
I don't think I knew the teacher part. That's pretty wild, and it actually makes a ton of sense. For your YouTube channel is great. You give such clear and helpful advice in the email geek, so that makes a ton of sense. But can you talk a little bit more about 4Now Marketing and why you thought that we needed a Braze consultancy on the technical side?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was a CSM at Braze, I was actually on the SMB customer segment, so small, mid-sized businesses. I had over 100 customers under my name. So every time one of the 100 customers submits a support ticket that's a strategy ticket, it would get routed to my inbox. So I'm answering, hundreds of questions on a weekly basis. And I always found myself asking could I just do this as my own business? What if I just became a Braze expert? There's clearly a need for it. Every time I help a customer and I provide the solution that I'm not sure if they're going to be able to implement because it's too technical, or they need more than just an email response. They need me to get on a call and really explain step by step. But we just didn't offer calls to over 100 customers just due to our bandwidth and service offering. So I've always thought that. And then around the time I wanted to leave Braze and try something new, I actually had 2 offers to be an in-house Braze specialist at 2 different marketing companies, or 2 different marketing teams at a fitness company and a fintech company. And then I just thought, then I'm kind of limiting myself to just these single companies again. Why not try making myself available to more people by just starting my own Braze consulting business? Always wanted to try my own business too, and I thought that was just a perfect opportunity. So yeah, here we are 2.5 years later. I've helped, more than a dozen companies, and definitely think I made the right decision there. So that's how I got here.
Can you give me a little bit of context as to I'm really interested in the term sort of technical marketing, right? Because Sean, I feel like you did this, you've done this, you're an expert at this, and you're kind of somebody who can really take Braze's features and come up with some pretty crazy, almost little mini apps or mini processes within them. Allan, can you give me a bit of context as to what constitutes technical marketing, right? I'm an idiot, right? I'm a huge idiot. Tell me what a common thing that you help your customers out with is.
Yeah, I really love the term technical marketer. I'm really trying to brand ourselves with it. I would trademark it if I could. Maybe I can, but it's before I explain what I've done, I'll explain where that comes from. So I think of in a very like traditional marketing team or traditional marketer, they have like great life cycle strategies. They like, are creative. They maybe have a more like visual design eye. Like, they know when to surface this email capture form if the user is visiting the page for the second time. Like they have all these like great strategies. And then on the other side, you have engineers who are building apps, building websites. Like they don't really care or are great at those like strategies. Like that's just not what their expertise is. And like the technical marketer kind of lives right in between those things. Like they are used to these creative strategies that marketers want to accomplish, but don't know how to like set up the logic, when the right trigger is, or think about the data necessary. And they're also not like a full out engineer that like is the one building and doing all that. So you're just connecting the two teams together. And that's kind of how technical marketer came about. Like it's someone who understands both the marketing desires and the engineering like requirements to be able to put it together.
It might be helpful for the people that don't know what Braze is, because they're more on the e-com side or aren't in the email space, right? Like, can you talk a little bit about what Braze is and what you can do with it, and kind of why? Like, it's super powerful whether you're technical or not, right? But it is, if you are technical or have the ability to do technical things, you can unlock a pretty crazy world. And so can you like, give a little context on that?
Yeah. So Braze is a lot of phrases to describe it: customer engagement platform, marketing automation tool. Some people call it a CRM tool. It has email capabilities, so it is also an email service platform as well. But pretty much, Braze can take in your users' interaction data and then use that to trigger messages of all sorts. So emails. So the channels that it offers is emails, push notifications, in-app messages, SMS texting, WhatsApp. They have their own another channel called content cards, which is like a native like product experience, but it's pretty much like a lifecycle marketing messaging tool. That's what Braze is. So in order to kind of power all the channels that I mentioned with personalized data, that's where like the data, the technical ingestion part of it comes into play. And then the creative like marketing strategy comes into play with how we actually send those messages. So yeah, Braze is, another tool very similar to Klaviyo, Iterable, Customer IO, but very enterprise, very growing fast, and just can handle billions of volumes. So it's a very strong tool, robust tool.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I loved about it, and I was completely new to, was even like the idea of like webhooks and being able to integrate other platforms and tools into your workflows. I had never heard of a webhook when I first started using Braze, but by the end, like that powered so much. I could send a connection, an event or some data to all the other platforms that we were using, right from Braze. I could add people to audiences for my ad platforms. I could remove them from audiences. You can update profiles and do a lot of really robust personalization. So like, there's a ton of technical capability that it opened my eyes. Like I had no idea I was even into technical stuff until I found Braze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting you point that out. Like, I actually think the idea of a webhook is pretty common and available everywhere, but Braze, and this could be actually like a downside of Braze, that there are just some things that you can only do using a webhook. That's maybe pretty important. So it kind of forces us to learn about webhooks. And also maybe Braze just surfaces like right there. It's like you can build an email or you can build a webhook. And you're like, what is a webhook? And you start to dig around and play around. Versus in other platforms, the webhook might be kind of hidden under the settings or a little harder to find. Or it's like the developer's only area, where in Braze, it's like, this is one of the core channels you're going to want to use for your everyday use cases. So we might just be exposed to webhooks more in Braze. But a lot of tools do provide an idea of a webhook one way or another. That's what I found out after learning about webhooks from Braze.
Sean, do you think it'd be helpful to like give the listeners an understanding as to like what customer journey would be for like somebody who's a little bit more technical than the average e-commerce marketer? Like, what is sort of a common use case for you with like a client?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Alan, yeah, walk us through like what are the sorts of projects that you're routinely kind of seeing, or maybe some of the more like novel things that you've had to try and solve and accomplish.
I always love talking about appointment reminder flows because it feels like such a simple and commonly requested idea, but it's so freaking hard for some reason. And I'll try to explain like the common sense approach of it and then what actually goes on behind the scenes. So let's say I'm making an appointment for, I don't know, like a workout class. It's happening in a week from now on. So next Friday, January, whatever. And January 31st. And when I first book the appointment, I usually get a confirmation email. So, hey, congrats, you've booked the appointment for January 31st at 9 a.m. Here's your confirmation email. You know, that type of transactional message is it's almost like necessary because the user needs to know like what they booked for. Now, the gym that I booked for wants to send me a reminder 24 hours before that my class is coming up. So now it's like I need to figure out what is 24 hours before, and then we send like, you know, Thursday at 9 a.m. Hey, reminder, your gym class is coming up tomorrow. Pack your bags, like get warmed up, whatever. It might just say things like that. So, and then maybe we won't get to this, but like after the class is over, we say like, thank you for attending. Like, you know, we loved having you. Or maybe if the platform knows you didn't attend, we say like, oh, sorry, we missed you. Like, do you want to reschedule? That's like, you know, pretty intuitive. That's what a reminder flow looks like. So then from a technical perspective, first we have that confirmation email that I mentioned. That part's easy. As soon as you make that booking, we usually send that confirmation email. Now, the hard part is like, how do we know when to send this reminder email? Like we need to send it 24 hours before the actual appointment date. And is it 24 hours? Some people want to send it an hour before. Some people want to send multiple, 24 hours before, 1 hour before, and like 5 minutes before. So you do have to do a little bit of like date calculation. Like what is 24 hours? Like how do we figure out that date? Because a lot of times engineers aren't going to give us all the metadata. Like, okay, appointment time is January 31st, 9 a.m. at Pacific time. But also here's 24 hours before, and here's a timestamp for 1 hour before, and here's a timestamp for 5 minutes before. There's no way they're providing all of that. So we have to figure that out on our end using Liquid and code and scripting, like marketer-friendly code. And then I'll throw some other questions. What happens if we cancel the appointment? Like, do we still send it? Or how do we know to cancel this appointment that's already been queued up to send 6 days from now on? What happens if I book an appointment for later today, 6 hours later, not a week out? Do I still get this appointment reminder 24 hours before, which is in the past? Like, that doesn't make sense. Should we then, if it's a same day appointment, should we send the reminder like at a different time, maybe 1 hour before? Like all these cases and considerations are just what goes through my head and just makes the simple reminder flow so like complicated.
You know, there's also the complexity of like, let's say you book 2 appointments, right? Because like this is, all right, now we're going to start, this is a warning everyone, we're going to start getting real Braze nerdy here. But so if it's 1 appointment, right, we can save a custom attribute for like next class or something like that. And then we can do some liquid logic off of that date. But if you book 2 and then you cancel one of them, how, like, you can't just in one workflow. So in Braze, it's called a canvas. In other platforms, it might be called a flow or whatever you want, right? But it's a multi-step, journeys, multi-step kind of logic based platform for your messages and branch logic. So we can't just like wait to hear, was an appointment canceled, then don't send messages, because we don't know which class it was canceled necessarily. And so it becomes much more complicated when you have the idea of like multiple bookings or multiple reservations.
So at that point, you can't just store your next appointment. You have to store the next appointment and the ID of that appointment, so we can actually identify that. And that's called a dictionary in the computer science term. It's also called an object, but you need like a group of multiple data for each instance or each item. And usually, like, behind the scenes, every workout class should have an ID, like a specific ID for, even if it's the same boxing class that happens every week should have a different ID, so you can identify that exact specific class. So yeah, it's a matter of identifying the right ID, canceling the right ID, giving you reminders about the right ID. It'd be terrible if you got a reminder email for the wrong, class, or the class that's happening next week. So it's like, yeah, let's make sure to send the right ID. Yeah.
That makes a ton of sense. Is there like a common sort of like approach, or is this just one of those things where you have to just think it through and custom design it for every single endpoint? Like, is there like a plugin in like sort of like Braze land, right? Like in the community forums, is there like a snippet that everyone uses? Like, are there like sort of community derived solutions for things like this, or is it just something where it's like every brand does it individually?
If there is a community forum, most likely I am the one that wrote the community forum or the solution for it. Or yeah, and I like to be the one that kind of that serves as the go-to for the community's like common questions. It's never a one size fits all, right? Because certain appointments that are like maybe it's like health related, and like, we need you to come to this. They might want to send 3 reminders, like I said, 1 day before, 1 hour before, 5 minutes before. Certain things, if it's just like a reminder for a webinar that I kind of signed up because I just wanted a free gift card, like, do we want to spam these users with reminders? Maybe not. So that's just one reminder. So the frequency of the reminders is one factor, but also what's made available by their engineering team is another huge variable as well. So it is a lot of, like, the concept and the flow, the solution approach is the same, but it is a lot of times working with like different limitations and different available data. So yeah, I think there can be one go-to solution that like serves as a baseline, and then teams just make modifications to it. I think that world is possible.
Got it. Okay, I'm gonna ask the question that everyone asks all the time about everything, and maybe Sean is annoyed at me about this, but how are you seeing like more and more clients like ask about using AI, right? Like, this could be anything from like, oh, I want to like chat GPT a specific tagline for every single customer or whatever, all the way to the annoying people that you say, oh, like, I don't need you because I can just chat GPT it. And it's like, no, you can't. Like, stop.
Yeah, first, let's go to the AI features available in Braze. They're starting to roll out more and more, mostly with like copywriting, code, some, image design. But it's like I always say this, AI is a great like enhancement tool. If you already have the skill, it'll amplify it. If you don't have the skill, it's not helpful. Like, you don't know what AI is doing for you. So teams try to be efficient, but I think we're still at a point where it can't quite completely like replace it. For example, like, we have a copywriter in one of our customers' team, and we tried, experimenting with using AI, which will look back at all the previous messages we've sent and try to generate, the next copy using the right branding and the right tone. And sure, part of it is probably the copywriter kind of wanting to hold on to a strong like control of the brand voice. But the other part of it is the AI just doesn't get it right. It doesn't use the right like soft words and the languages that this, like, for example, healthcare industry needs to be using. And then the other part is like writing Liquid. So Liquid is a personalization Shopify language. It's kind of like code. It is coding pretty much, just not as like robust coding as like Python or JavaScript. And Braze has an AI Liquid builder feature. I used it yesterday. It made a mistake, and I had to catch that mistake, and like, I knew where to go. Somebody else using it for the first time would have no idea where to fix it. So it's like, what good is it if it does the work for you incorrectly? Like, did it really do the work for you? I don't think so.
I do want to, I mean, I could talk about Braze quite literally forever. I do want to talk about some other things, but before we switch topics off of Braze, Bill and Miles and Spencer and all the leaders that ship at Braze, I'm sure listen to this podcast every single week. So before the show, I asked some people what we should ask Allan. And the most popular question is, what is the single change Braze could make that would improve a technical marketer's day-to-day the most?
Yeah, I saw that question and I thought about the answer. And I mean, single most is so hard to answer, right? But I really thought about it. The single most feature for a technical marketer, I'll give you the honorable mention answer, which I didn't think was that much of a game changer, which was like canvases. We can create a user journey. Some teams I've seen, which I think is actually too long, is maybe like a 20-day, like 15 message journey where all the education, all the background story with some delays tied in. I think right now Braze is really, you can only control like one part at a time. There's no like click and drag, copy and paste, mass move around. So it's a very tedious process if you have a really long journey you're building. But that was my honorable mention answer, but I didn't think that addressed the problem of a technical marketer. So a slightly better answer I had was a much more visible log of all the data that's being passed in and out. So like if a user performs a custom event, like can we see more details of that custom event? Like can we get it on the user profile side? Like can we see the metadata that comes along with it? The query builder, which connects to their Snowflake instance, does make it a lot more visible, but it's still like you have to write SQL for it, which once again, good thing there's an AI SQL builder, but that, comes with a learning curve as well. So yeah, I think just making data more visible on an individual basis would be really helpful for Braze users. I believe the reason Braze hasn't done that is there's just a cost implication to it. The more granular data you make available on the dashboard, I think just costs more to store that data, have it shown. And I mean, Braze has like billions of user profiles. So that's just a lot of different profile personal data to consider. So I can see why they haven't done that yet. But yeah, that granular level visibility would be so helpful.
Yeah, those are both great responses. I very much have felt the pain of both of them. I thought you were going to go with moving something from like a dev workspace to a prod workspace, because that would also be killer.
Common request for sure. Yeah.
The workspaces are completely, basically, if you have a dev instance, it's a completely it's like you have your own Braze account for that. It's like two completely different disconnected Braze accounts. And so you have to rebuild everything in both places.
They're getting better. Slowly pushing more and more features to be able to push from one workspace to the other. But like Sean said, it is really like a separate environment, whole new set of data points, whole new set of like users. So yeah.
So now you know my pain, Ibby, when you were doing some of that crazy stuff back in the day.
Sean, I gotta say, like Customer IO had this feature 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So it's like
they've got copy and paste whole parts of the flow
that's
too.
Crazy. So it's like,
and I'm not gonna lie, they also have better exposed data on the profile.
All of that. So my experience actually started with Customer IO, and I thought when I moved to Braze, there were a lot of similarities. Liquid being one of the biggest similarities. But I was like, oh, why doesn't Customer IO or why doesn't Braze have the copy and paste? Would be crazy. Or why can't Braze push canvases from one to the other? Yeah, I'm still a number one Braze fan, but I do miss Customer IO quite a bit because just thought it was a little bit more of a like flexible tool.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder how much my love for Braze is just like my blind love for the Buffalo Bills at this point, where like they kind of can't do wrong, and I'm just like, this is my team, this is what I picked.
This is kind of my question, is just from like a business perspective, like one of the two companies I see compared very often is like Braze and Klaviyo. And I know they're very different. I know they're used by different people and different companies. And the craziest part about it is like, I think they have fairly similar market caps, but their ACVs are so different. Like the average ACV of a Braze customer, I think is like $160,000 a year versus like the average ACV of like a Klaviyo customer. I know Klaviyo recently raised their prices is like $5,000 a year or something like that. But that's all to say, like, as two people that love Braze, what is your, like, why? Like, what do you think it does better than a customer IO? What do you think it does? I know what it does better than Klaviyo. Like, I think it's just like a lot more advanced and what it does better than an iterable or a Klaviyo. But what are other tools and why do you guys think it's better?
Oh man, well they were really nice to me. No, I mean I think that Braze has an incredible amount of flexibility. So like if it, like, not comparing it to Klaviyo, I think Klaviyo is the ESP that I recommend to Shopify brands, hands down. That is the one that I say go with. It's easy to use. It has all the features. It has email and SMS. I think it has push now. Braze, I think, is a lot more technical, gives you a lot more flexibility and freedom. It was really designed to be the marketing automation platform for mobile apps, right? Like, so whereas Klaviyo was designed specifically for Shopify, Braze was designed specifically for apps. And that's, I think, different worlds. When you look at customer.io, I've only, I did demos with it, and I like the team quite a bit. Everything I've seen has been very impressive. I haven't actually used the platform, so can't speak too deeply to it. I do think that you don't know every single platform has things that are going to be frustrating and annoy you. I know the ones with Braze quite well, and so I feel very comfortable getting into any Braze instance and being able to immediately make changes and do things, whereas customer.io I would be blindly exploring for a while. Not a great answer, but that's what I got.
So it's the beast that you know, and that they were nice to you. Listen, this gives me a lot of hope as a B2B founder that if I just like kiss the ring enough, people will love me and they'll go to bat for me. So this is good. This is good. I can have a shitty platform as long as I'm sick as fuck. Sorry for the French.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of sales, right? Like, it's, after all, you're working with people and you can win people over. So, and to some extent, yeah.
A lot of these large platforms, anytime you are the person selecting a platform that you should go with, you are putting a lot of your personal reputation at work on the line. And Braze, no one will get fired for picking Braze, right? Like, Braze is the safe option. It is the main one in the market. It is like the leader. Like, Braze will do everything you need it to do. There's a huge community of people who are actively supporting it. There's a few things I do love. I love that they have a roadmap that you can request features on. You can upvote. I think it's very transparent in that way. And so you can say, okay, this is a pain point I'm having, and you can request a feature. I've done that a bunch. I've done a bunch of calls with product teams giving feedback on features that are either they're just trying to figure out or are ready to try and get initial tests on. So I think that they really take their community and their users very, very seriously. And they do try and build the things that their customers are asking for. And I think that cannot be overvalued in any way. I think that is an amazing thing.
Yeah. And if I can chime in, just with one aspect maybe Sean didn't cover, is I think just inevitably the volume that Braze can support that Klaviyo or customer.io cannot. So regardless of all the features and like how much you could do, I think just strictly volume wise, I don't know if any other platform besides Braze can support like hundreds of millions of message sends per day like Braze can. And I think Braze does have some monster clients that, we're probably getting messages from every single day, like literally all of us like in the world. And yeah, like I think their back end is set up to be able to support that enterprise level that maybe like, Klaviyo can't do. I'm actually really surprised here that their market cap might be similar. I would have thought Braze would be way higher. But I also do think that Klaviyo might have like tens of thousands of customers, whereas Braze might only have like 2,000 customers, but all with a much higher ACV, like you said. So
Interesting. I'm looking this up right now, and Braze's market cap is half of Klaviyo's.
that's crazy.
This is not investment advice in any way, and you should see the counsel of an investor.
So I think the time that I thought that it was the same might have been like 6 months ago, because their stock has doubled basically in the last year, and especially it's gone up 75% in the last 6 months versus, let's look at Braze's stock. It's also gone up. But it's only gone up 18%. So like they were a lot closer 6 months ago.
Wow, Braze market cap being half of Klaviyo, that still blows my mind. I mean, okay, that just speaks to how many like smaller independent like Shopify type. I mean, Shopify is a monster as well. And how many of those smaller businesses are probably using Klaviyo to power their email marketing? Klaviyo is definitely winning at the volume game for sure. I think the other main difference is like the minimum contract size for Braze is also not something that any individual can afford. Like it's in the 5 digits for a minimum contract size. So if I just open up a Shopify store, I'm not using Braze. I'm using Klaviyo's free version or MailChimp. That's probably where Klaviyo gets all the little, hundreds, thousands, like couple thousands contract sizes. And yeah, it all adds up, I guess.
Yeah, I also think the market hasn't been as kind to them, I guess. Like since they IPO'd, it's kind of halved, but that's also like, Klaviyo IPO'd at a different time. So it's kind of like apples to oranges.
I was at Braze when Braze IPO'd, and we were all very excited on day one. And about a few months later, we were not as excited. But I think that's also the case for a lot of tech stocks. The IPO day is super exciting, and then they all watch their portfolio like significantly shrink the next few months. But it's bounced back somewhat since.
Yeah, I bought some stock. I'm a big fan of this holding.
Yeah. This is becoming a finance chat. I love it. Not investment advice.
All right, let's do a little pivot then. All three of us are founders of a business. Allan, you've been going for like two years and change, right?
Wait, I'm the founder of a business?
This podcast. This is the closest thing you've got. I wanted to make you feel included.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I know you've done some hiring, Allan. I know that you've been so successful closing deals that you like have actually had to turn away business. Like, what are some of the lessons that you have learned and growth that you've seen that you kind of weren't expecting as you kind of embarked on being a founder?
In my early days, the volume of outreach work that I did all paid off. And actually, this even goes back to my Braze days too. Like, my goal was to talk to every single customer success manager at Braze when I started, every single member at the Chicago office. And that already was like maybe 150 like one-on-one calls that I scheduled. And I was able to do this because we thankfully had a pretty slower onboarding process where we were encouraged to have one-on-one talks and meet people. So I did that. I talked to every single CSM, the ones in London, the ones in Singapore, everybody in US for sure, and then talked to everybody in the Chicago office. And like just that relationship building, like it still pays dividends like to this day. Like I still keep in touch with some of my Braze colleagues who refer me to clients, who check in on me, who like, just encourage me in ways. So I think that helps. And I kind of carried that same mindset when I first started the business. I was messaging every single person on the Slack bonfire, the email geeks. Like and maybe at some point I got a little too much because I got flagged for like just talking too much or trying to be too salesy. But the point is, I think at some point in your journey, whether it's in the early stages or even later, like you do need to put in the volume of the outreach. Because no one knows about you. You have to spread your word somehow. And that individual like message or email like goes a long way. That's how I found my first several clients. And then just like miraculously 6 months later, I started getting incoming requests and referrals and introductions. And it's crazy to say I haven't done outreach in the last 2 years, and we just continue to be kind of fully at full capacity with the inbound requests. So I think, all the work that I put in the first 6 months really paid off. I think that's not realistic. 6 months is really not that long of a time. But I think what also helps is my 2 years at Braze, and just like the reputation that I have as a former in-house Braze CSM, all that really made the like outreach phase much shorter for me. But like I said, I feel very lucky and grateful for that, but it's not realistic. I think you could be doing outreach for years and still not quite build the brand that you want to. So that's one part of it. That's one part of it. I'll pause there if you have any questions or comments there.
Well, that's a big part. I'm doing that now, and it sucks. It is so unfun to spend my day sending cold emails and LinkedIn, and just like I spend my screen time report that you get from all your Apple devices, has gotten out of control. It's like my wife makes fun of me for how much, like, if she isn't actively talking to you, she's like, "Why are you on LinkedIn right now? Like, get off." So that part sucks.
Chilling.
I mean, it just is, and then I think, I joked earlier that you're one of the top 3 people on Email Geeks, but like you and Bob Mitchell are the 2 people that like, I will just ask anything. Like, you are the 2 people I go to for anything Braze. And I think every time someone has asked me who they should go to for support or about a hiring question, I'm like, you should just talk to Allan and like work with him until you figure out the job. And I think that can't be. I mean, Email Geeks is its own really great community, right? It's like if you're not building an email tool, not as helpful. I'm in like 8 other Slack groups that all suck. But Email Geeks is unique. But you did a great job of kind of paying it forward and just solving problems for people and building that reputation of the guy who's gonna respond to any liquid question, who's gonna respond to any Braze question.
Right. Yeah, and thank you for that like shout out too. And I don't want to like make my efforts sound like it all has like a sales focus behind it, but even all the responses that I share on Email Geeks, it's all part of the outbound. I'm putting my name out there. Yes, I'm answering questions. That is like part of what I'm doing for sure. But also, like you said, you see me answering questions, and you kind of start to build your view of me that I know Braze well, and that starts to spread. You introduce me to somebody like that. It all spreads like crazy in ways that I don't even know like where it's happening. So any action where I am doing something for somebody else, whether it's cold emailing or whether it's answering messages, yeah, all that's part of the outbound for sure. It's literally an outbound action. Yeah.
That's got to be such a great feeling that like just now that you're getting all this inbound. And I mean, Ibby made a comment about this yesterday, right? He's like, suddenly appointments are showing up on my calendar and I have no idea where they're coming from. Like that's a big inflection point when your business starts to make that transition from I have to go out and work my ass off for every new deal to people are coming and like you are recognized in the space is super, super effective.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, the appointment that I did not recognize was this appointment, our call. So I deleted it at first, but that's how I found out. Oh, it's actually the podcast call. It's so funny. But yeah, I think it's definitely a tough phase that you're going through, but it's definitely like a trust the process type of thing. And in about minimum 6 months, realistically 1 year, I think you will also, I'm sure, be very successful and have all that outbound effort be paid off in the inbound call. So,
all right. Before we jump off, Allan, do you have anything that you want to shill? Anything you want to pub?
I guess definitely my YouTube channel. That is, I never thought I was going to be an enterprise software tutorial channel, but honestly, it's been my most successful social media effort so far. So I'm just riding this wave. We hit 500 subscribers last week, so we can now sell merch on our channel, which is awesome. But yeah, more seriously, not about the merch. I do make a lot of Braze tutorials. trying to just answer all the questions that I commonly get from the community. So youtube.com/fornowmarketing is definitely a cool resource to check out. And I think from there, you'll lead to other resources that I have on there as well. So yeah.
Perfect. We will link to that. Everyone check out For Now Marketing. And if you're in email geeks, start harassing Allan with all your questions. And if you're not, go taunt him on YouTube.
Cool. Thank you both.